Hey guys, how are we doing? It's Martin Cliffe here from Voyager Project and various other things. And in this video I'm sort of revisiting the Quest for Tone, which is a series I did last year, and just looking at some of the little things that we can do to our guitars or to our amplifiers just to improve our tone, to help us get the tone that we hear in our head and actually get that to come out. Now, I say little things. Some of them are really simple and don't require any expense. Some of them do require spending a bit of money. So the first thing to think about is the guitar itself. Now, I'm sure everyone out there has taken their guitar and adjusted the action of the bridge and checked the intonation and the neck straightness, the truss rod, made sure everything plays nicely. And none of that really impacts tone, except that if your strings are too low, then you don't get quite as good a tone because of that. But I wonder how many of us have thought about the other things that we can do to the guitar, specifically with the tone-making stuff, the electronics. Now, I use what I guess will be classed as fairly high-gain pickups. This is a DiMarzio D-Sonic, which is pretty high output bridge pickup, and an Air Norton, which is kind of the higher end of the medium output pickups on from DiMarzio. But what I do, I don't know how well this will show up in the video, but whereas a lot of guitars you'll see the pickups are really close to the strings, I like to back them off quite a way. And I really think that helps the tone quite a lot. It'll take a bit to demonstrate, so it's not something I can really do in the video, although if anyone's really interested, just try it yourself. It's just get a screwdriver. Now I don't know exactly how far down it is. It's down more than 1/4 of an inch, less than half an inch, less than a centimetre, so 7 or 8 mil down from the strings, which is more than on guitar forums they'll recommend to you. But certainly with the higher output pickups I find that I get more sustain because the strings aren't being pulled back into line by the magnetic field from the pickup, and I just get a slightly more open tone. Again, your mileage may vary, and this doesn't apply if you've got something like EMGs, which have a really low magnetic output anyway, and it's all circuitry inside them that give you the distinctive EMG tone, if you like that sort of thing. But certainly for passive pickups, experiment. Doesn't require any cost or anything. I'm sure everyone in the world has a Phillips screwdriver. If not, and you're a musician, you need to get one. And all you do is adjust the 2 screws. Try and keep them fairly level so your E strings are a similar distance from the pickup, and just drop them down. If you drop them down too far, they might start to sound a bit naff, so sort of bring them back up again. But just find your spot. So I've got quite a lot of gap, which means that my pick, when I'm playing, no matter how hard I'm hitting the strings, it never catches the pickups, which is a good thing for my playing style, because on occasion, particularly if I'm singing and I'm running around like a crazy person, it can get a bit slapdash. So I don't want to catch my pickups with my plectrums. Another thing you can do, of course, is actually replace the volume and the tone knobs and the pickup selector switch. And I would say if you've got a cheap Korean or Chinese or Indian made guitar or whatever, do that straight away. Otherwise, just do it when they start to get a bit scratchy. Pots aren't expensive, so I like the DiMarzio pots. I've got those on both my main guitars. And again, it just doesn't in itself affect the tone, but it certainly enables you to get that range of tones that you can get from adjusting the volume and tone controls without actually having to deal with nasty crackling noises through your amplifier or what have you. Okay, and that moves us actually onto the amplifier, and this is something I can demonstrate. Now I use Igniter tweakers, 15 watts, all valve, because I have not heard a modelling amp yet that sounds good. And these are a simple-ended 6v6 design. What I've got here is a stock one, other than the back panel currently isn't on because I've been swapping tubes around. This is stock. This comes with the stock Electro Harmonics 12AX7 tubes in the preamp section and the Ruby tubes in the power amp section. Then this one, which is my main one, doesn't. This one I've swapped out all 5 tubes in fact. So I've set them identically, just going across. Tight switches off, bright switches off. We're on clean with the gain at about 10 o'clock. Bass at 1 o'clock, middle at 2 o'clock, treble at about 1:30. British mode, master at 1 o'clock, vintage. Okay, and so the stock one, what I'll do in a second is switch them across to the one that I've changed the tubes out of, but this gives me this kind of tone. So it's loud, it's clean, it's nice and glassy, but it just wasn't quite what I was looking for. I wanted a little bit more headroom. I've got the gain low, so that doesn't impact it too much, but I just wanted a little bit more sparkle out of it. So if you just bear with me a second. I should say that I've only got guitar into cable into amplifier. And that's it. So, switch the speaker up. Now, I don't know how much of that is coming across. It's really difficult to A/B between amps and the same speakers. But what we've got there is, to me, it's sounding a bit more glassy, a bit more tubular, if you will, a bit more classic sounding. It's got a little bit more sparkle to it, and just it sounds closer to the sound I hear in my head when I hear it with a guitar amplifier. So, which at the end of the day is what our quest for tone is. It's when you hear a guitar tone, when you think of a guitar tone in your head, can we actually achieve that? And with this set of small modifications, a case of the tubes, just to explain what I've done with the tubes, I've taken out V1, which is the preamp stage tube. I took out the 12AX7 and put in a old RCA 5751 tube from 1970. Which is a good few years before I was born, so it's an old piece of kit. It's about 70% of the gain of a 12AX7, which is where we get a bit more headroom. I use a lot of pedals. I like to get my gain from the pedals, so that's why I want clean headroom. So that just cleans things up a little bit. V2, which is the effects loop, although I'm not using the effects loop at the moment, certainly not in this demo. I do on occasion stick a delay or a reverb in there. That I just swapped out with a Czech Tesla 12AX7 tube. Again, this is before JJ bought Tesla, so we're talking Cold War era, early to mid 80s, which I was alive for. But that's again, it's just a slightly higher quality, sort of more transparent sounding tube to my ears. And then the V3, which is the phase inverter tube. I read on the internet that someone recommended sticking a 12AT7, which is again a lower gain tube in there. It's 12AT7WA, and I'm trying to remember what make that is, but it's I can't remember, but again it's another vintage tube. I think it's from 1978, which I was probably born for. So yeah, I mean they're the tubes, and then the power tubes I've got in here are, I believe, some Russian military tubes from the mid-80s. Again, I'm not entirely sure what they are, partly because the writing's all in Russian and I can't read it. But again, yeah, it's just a slightly higher quality tube. At the time when Russia were producing tubes by the million, so I went on eBay and found some new old stock tubes from that era that were high quality and not too expensive. I've also tried, as well as the stock tubes, I've also tried some Tungsol ones, which are slightly more oomphy, slightly more low end, but if you've seen one of my rants you'll know that I actually had some reliability issues with those, so they're not in either amp at the moment. What can you do? Okay, so I mean that's something you can do with the amplifier itself. Talked about the guitar, I've talked about the amplifier. Cables, obviously, it stands to reason you use as good a quality cable as you can. Now at some point I'll do a demo of different qualities of cables. It's a little bit tricky to set up. Basically I like these Elixir cables, which they don't make anymore. So I bought up pretty much every 20-foot one that I could find in the UK and possibly in Europe. Really low capacitance, unusually low capacitance, which I like because I don't get any dulling. I can use pedals or the amplifier control to dull my top end. I want to get as much of the pure guitar tone through as possible. So that's my approach. Other cables I would recommend, the Planet Waves, D'Addario, American Stage cables are really good. They're excellent cables. If you're going to make your own, Neutrik jacks always, and Mogami or Van Dam cable is great, or Sommer as well. Any of those are good stuff. But yeah, if you can find an Elixir one, or the Planet Waves American Stage stuff is good stuff. It's worth spending a little bit more on cables than you might think. Just again because what we don't want is anything in our signal chain to detract from our tone. So yeah. And if you're using pedals and you're using switching and any of that stuff, again we want stuff as transparent as possible. So I use RJM Music Technology equipment, use their mini effect gizmos, which basically means every pedal's in its own true bypass loop, and so we've not got any signal degradation. When a pedal's not on, it doesn't load my signal chain at all. Although there's usually a pedal on somewhere along the line. Now the other thing that I would mention is actually speakers. It's relatively easy to replace speakers in speaker cabs, whether you have to remove the front panel or like in this case remove the back panel and swap out a speaker. That is something I've done, but not in both cabs. Again, I wanted a broader sort of tonal base really. So the bottom cab, which is just out of shot, is your stock Celestion G12 H30 70th anniversary speaker, which is a good sounding speaker. But what I wanted, as I say, was a little bit more variety. So that is 100 decibel sensitivity. And what I've put in the top cabinet is a greenback, which is a 25 watt 98 decibel sensitivity, I believe. Sort of medium weight magnet, so it's slightly low power. It's just a slightly warmer, slightly different sounding speaker. Now again, this is going to be tricky to demonstrate. What I'll have to do is do this in post, so you won't see me adjusting anything, but I'll do a bit of cutting and pasting as I'm doing these edits. Okay, so the other thing I didn't say about the tubes was that the stock tubes are a little bit more noisy. I've got much less self-noise on the one with the vintage tubes in. So both together, the tone we've got is Okay, and then just the G12H30. And just the greenback. So on its own, I don't know exactly how well I'd say the video will show this up. I should say I'm miking these cabs with identically placed matched pair of SE Electronics R1 ribbon microphones. Again, I like ribbon microphones, and they have a really nice tone to them that just suits guitar playing. Not ideal for insane heavy gain. I had a band in the studio a few weeks ago that were very, well, pretty heavy, and for them I ended up just using 57s and Sennheiser E606's dynamic microphones because they suited that sort of guitar tone better. Although a 57 blended with a ribbon works quite nicely. But certainly for the kind of playing I'm doing, which is usually low to medium gain, a bit more vintage style, then the ribbon microphones sound great. As I say, now when I've got one cab, the greenback on its own is a little bit woolly, a little bit lacking in top end, but it's got a lovely warmth to it. Because it's a slightly lower efficiency speaker as well, it's 98 decibels as opposed to 100 decibels, which isn't all that much. Decibels are one of these strange logarithmic ratios things, but it is a little bit quieter. So we're still, if I'm stood in front of it, what I'm getting is slightly more output from the G12H30, which is good because that's got a little bit more brightness to it. But at the same time, I don't want to be tearing my head off, so the reason I've got the greenback on top is because it's got slightly less high end, so it's closer to my ears, so I get the warmth from that, and then just by virtue of inverse square law of distance and sound, I get slightly less of the lower one. So when I'm miking them up for recording or mixing or whatever, I want them fairly even in level. But what I'm hearing myself on stage in front of the speakers is slightly, just a slightly warmer sound because I hear slightly more of the higher cab because it's closer to my ears. I'm 6'2", so it's further away for a low speaker to reach me than one that's a couple of feet in the air. That's simple acoustics, simple physics. But hopefully this has kind of been interesting just to show some of the little things we can do that maybe you won't have thought of. Everyone knows about, adjusting amplifier settings, adjusting guitar settings, changing pickups out, changing your cables, choosing your pedals wisely and all that. And since I did the Quest for Tone, I've got an almost completely different set of pedals. So it's certainly that's something that has evolved and is still evolving to a certain extent, although I'm very, very happy with some of the ones I've got now. So the Quest for Tone is unending, but certainly I'm a lot closer to my goal than I was 12 months ago, a lot closer than I was 2 years ago. Will I ever be 100% but satisfied? Who knows? But we're getting there. Okay, until next time, take care. I've been Martin Cliffe from Voyager Project, and I'll see you soon.